Hey, what's up, Parent Porch family? Man, this is exciting. I'm out here. By the way, my name is Casanova. I am co-founder of ParentPorch, and I wanted to come on here and talk to you guys about a new series that I'm going to be leading. Just one of the series, one of the things that we're doing for the Parent Porch platform. But this series is going to be called From a Dad to a Dad. So this will be me just speaking to the fathers. I plan on doing this once a week. These will be on Wednesday nights. Now, I'll tell you, ladies, moms, providers, caregivers, we have so much in store for parents in general, but definitely moms because, obviously they're the backbones of our families. So trust me when I tell you, it's so many great things coming along with that. But I wanted to do this segment because there's a lot of dads out there. There's a lot of dads out there that are trying to figure it out on their own. There's a lot of dads out there that are writing the rule book or the blueprint when they never had it. For them, they didn't have a dad growing up, myself included. And so I wanted this to be a safe space where it'll start out, I would say, just me, but I'll be bringing on other dads who are very well respected in my world, other dads who I see that are pushing through it, who are fighting through, the everyday grind of how do you raise a child as a father, especially if you've never had one. And so that's what I want to speak to today. And I really wanted to start this segment because I did a podcast last week and this was about AI, but I was talking about my family, how I've become the family man that I am. And, the host had asked me, yeah, shout out to Steven, but the host had asked me, how have I became the father that I am, seeing as I never had a father in my life. And that stuck with me this whole week because I really had to sit back and think about it. And so, as you all come to learn more of my story, my journey, and again, I'm not definitely the only one. I appreciate anybody who watches this, who comments on this. I appreciate anybody who shares this. I hope that any dad they get a chance to see this, I get a chance to connect with. But we have a lot of cool things coming for moms as well. I just want to be, clear on that. But going back to it, someone had asked me, how have I became that dad? And so for me, I really have thought about that. And here's what I would say. I think this is such an important topic because for many fathers out there right now, not only are we raising kids through a whole different era, but at the same time, we're trying to figure out how to connect with children in a way that we were never connected with before. Right. So I'm only speaking to a dad right now who didn't grow up with a dad. Now, to give you a little bit of background on my story, I'm originally from Chicago, south side of Chicago, for anybody who's watching. And my dad was never in my life. I was the only child on my mom's side, but last I knew, I had 13 brothers and sisters on my dad's side. But my dad never did anything to bridge that gap or the relationships with my siblings. So I really grew up as an only child. With that being said, as I got older, I really started to understand the things of what not to do, right? Because there's a lot of times when I was growing up, I wish that I had a dad or big brother to be able to turn to understand how to navigate relationships with girls, how to, keep a job, how to become a man in any standpoint. And so as I got my first child, um, I really started to think about, and I have two kids. So at some point, I'm sure you'll see at least my daughter, but maybe even my son as well. But I have two kids, and my son CJ, he's 14, and my daughter Jada, she's about to turn 8 here in just about a month. But so as CJ was first born, I think what I really tried to focus on was what not to do, right? Because and I'll bring it back and I'll tell you about one instance with CJ where it really taught me that I was building on the way up. So this, and just gonna be real off the gate. So CJ was 2 years old at this time, and I remember he had did something that I told him not to do. And This was now, like I said, he's 14, so this is 12 years ago, and he did something I told him not to do. So what I did was I took my hand, no belt, no nothing crazy. I took my hand and I spanked his butt a couple times. And I remember probably about 5, 10 minutes later, he was still under the table and he had headphones on because afterwards he ran under the table, sat under there, and he had headphones on. And so I remember, leaning under the table and I said, "Buddy, why are you still under the table?" And he said, "Because I'm scared." And I was like, "Well, why?" And he was like, "Because every time you get mad, you hit me." And at that moment, it was like a shot to my heart, right? Because in my mind, I was just trying to be the disciplinarian, right? I didn't do anything too crazy, but then I really had to think about it that night, and I was like, "Okay, what am I teaching him? Am I teaching him as a young man that as you get older, you can't control your emotions because somebody doesn't do what you tell them to do?" Right? And at that very moment, even in that just small scenario, I could have kept my chest out and be like, "Oh, you gonna do what I say." But it would have been nice to call a dad, a big brother, and be like, "Man, like, here's what just happened, between me and CJ." And I didn't have that at that very moment, right? So I had to really dig down into me and I had to say, okay, well, what do you want to teach him as he gets older? Right? How do you want to lead by example? And so that was one of the first moments where I was like, okay, here's what not to do, right? You got to be able to articulate, you got to be able to communicate to someone how you feel. And more importantly, you got to get them to understand why it's important. All right. And so that's the first thing that I think, started me out on the journey of understanding that to become the best dad that I can be, I had to first set the standard of who I was trying to become. Right. Because that, if I'm always chasing who I want to become, that means that I'll never catch myself being complacent as a dad, as a husband, as a friend, right? Because my level of personal development, right? I just had this conversation with CJ, 3 days ago, and I told him, my level, anyone's level, your level of success will never outweigh your level of personal development, right? And so for me, as I thought of that, I was like, okay, that's what not to do, right? I remember another time, CJ, again, not listening to his mom. And he was a little bit older. He was probably about 5 at this time. He's like 5 or 6, right? And I remember I was so frustrated. Now at this time, I'm still not putting my hands on him anymore because that was a shot to my chest, right? So I'm not putting my hands on him. And so I have what I call my definitely my therapist, my big sister, mentor. Shout out to Diana if she ever sees this, but she's so amazing. But anyway, I remember calling her one time and I was so frustrated with CJ. And I remember her telling me, you got to understand that his little brain has only been developing for 72 months, right? You still don't do everything you need to do, and you're 32 years old, right? Whatever the age that I was at that time. And so she put that into perspective for me. And so I think the second thing was being okay with understanding that I don't have all of the answers, right? And I think when you become a dad, you feel like it's your responsibility to give all of the wisdom. Well, obviously there's the old wise tale that it takes a village, right, to raise one child. If you got 3, 4, 5 children, it definitely takes a village. Sometimes it takes, a state, it takes, the whole country. But that was a big thing for me because it put it into perspective that sometimes I just got to call someone and try to get some wisdom and discernment rather than thinking that I always know. And obviously, the best person you can ever call on, is the man above, right? But in those moments that you still want to feel like you have someone that you can bounce an idea off of, you got to have that person in your circle who preferably, I was going to say primarily, but preferably that's older than you, someone who's been through it, right? If you're lucky enough to still have a grandparent, you can call them up. And, sometimes it's hard when you're calling, somebody who's not just one step ahead of you. Why? Is because as these times change, they're rooted in their own ways, right? Like my grandma, amazing lady, but obviously she's a lot older, so she's seen so many cycles, but she's also, lived through a lot of different things that she feels like it's this way. It's supposed to be this way. And so for me, as I thought about how do I build the plane on the way up, that means I gotta have people that are smarter around me. That means I gotta have people that are more logical around me. That means I gotta have more people that are sensible around me. And that's a big deal for me. And so I say this to fathers because, my brother, if you are thinking that you have all of the answers, what's the let me see. I'm butchering it a little bit, but they say, um, a man that knows anything knows he knows nothing at all, right? And I think I'm butchering it a little bit, but it's like a man that knows something knows that he knows nothing at all. And so every single day you have to be asking yourself, what do I really know? Right? There's another saying that I say, and if you haven't heard this one, this is definitely one of my favorites. Every time I really get deep into my bag, it's who knows what's good or what's bad, right? So I heard this when I was first ever starting out on my speaking journey, and it was a old wise tale, and I think it's an African proverb too. But anyway, it's about a king and a stallion, right? So this king has a stallion. His son hops on the stallion one day, goes for a ride, and stallion bucks him off. He didn't ask the king first. He just went on there, took the stallion. Stallion bucks him off. King loses his only stallion. Son breaks his leg, right? And then the neighbor comes over and says, "Oh man, you got to be so mad." And King is like, "Why?" And he's like, "Well, you lost your only stallion, and your son, who didn't ask you, is now broken his leg, and you got to help him." And he's like, who knows what's good or what's bad, right? Well, the next day, the army comes and they need more soldiers, and his son is primed for the picking, but they can't take him. Why? Because he has a broken leg. So they pass and they go on to, the next people that will help them. Well, they go to war, everyone dies, unfortunately, in the war, right? So the neighbor comes back and he says, "Oh man, you got to be so happy right now." And King's like, "Why?" And he's like, "Well, because did you hear? Everybody died at the war." And the king's like, who knows what's good or what's bad, right? And so next day, the stallion comes back, but guess what? He brings two other stallions with him. Now the king has three stallions, right? The neighbor comes back over. He said, "Man, oh my God, you got to be so happy right now." King's like, "Why?" He's like, "Now you got three stallions. Your stallion came back. Nobody took him." King says, who knows what's good or what's bad, right? So when I say that is because a lot of the times, especially us as dads, we're always thinking about the outcome, the emotion, right? You got to be a man, you got to be strong. But at the same time, who knows what's good or what's bad with that scenario, right? The only thing that's good or bad is the outcome that you attach to that moment, right? Everybody responds in a different way. So what that means to me and what I would tell any brother that's out there listening is you got to be patient, right? Enough to respond rather than react, even if it feels like what your child or what someone did to you was intentional, what someone did to you was senseless. You'll have to think to yourself, who knows what's good or what's bad? Because you don't know what's on the other side. And if you truly believe that everything happens for you, nothing happens to you, you'll be better off in the end, no matter what, right? Sometimes like we see the doors close on us. Well, it's great because that door closed on you, there's an opportunity that's right around the corner that you're going to be so blessed to get. Another way to put this is joy wouldn't feel so good if it wasn't for a little bit of pain. And so for me, I always try to think about as a father, especially having a daughter now. And I'll tell you, my daughter's absolutely amazing. Let me put that on record. She's beautiful. She's so smart. She's very witty. But a lot of the times I have to take a lot of L's. And I would tell you, for somebody who grew up without a father, without any real siblings that were always around, as an only child, I didn't have to take a lot of L's. If I didn't want to play with somebody, guess what? I just go home, I go to my room. I didn't have to play with somebody. But like my son, he doesn't have that luxury. And I don't have that luxury because, he obviously has to share with her. He has to protect her. He has to watch her. Even now, he's at that point that he's 14. We're not hiring no more babysitters, right? So that's all on him. But even for me, there's a lot of the times where when I tell her something, she has so much life. And this is another thing I want to say. Like a lot of the times, we are so focused on the right now. And I know I catch myself doing this too. But like, we're like, I said you gotta da 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 da, or whatever it might be, right? And then they're jumping around, they're playing, and you're like, I said it's bedtime. And they're jumping. It's like, no. And I always just kind of try to not kind of, I always remind myself that like there's so much life in that little body, right? That we have to be so happy to see joy, because as they get older, what's going to happen? The world's going to put so many constraints on them. The world's going to put so much fear and doubt into them. And right now, they're in a safe space, right? So for you as a father, as a brother, as an uncle, right? You got to be smiling when you think about how much joy that child, how safe that child feels around you, to be able to just smile even when you're saying whatever. It's like, nah, because I'm having fun. I can be me, right? I can be me. And so I think that that's one of the things that I'm constantly always trying to remind myself to, like, that it doesn't matter what I think, right? If a moment happens and I can find gratitude and I can find happiness out of it, it doesn't matter what my mind is saying. When I say what I think, it matters what my heart's saying. If there's a moment that you're just like, man, this is beautiful, you got to live in that moment, right? And you got to understand that, yes, the problems, they will still be there, but this is that very moment where you just get to smile because you're blessed and highly favored, right? And that's the one thing that I don't think enough of us are telling each other or even telling ourselves, right? So the first thing was, again, I learned what not to do. The second thing was I've learned from respected people, right? Of how do I build a community? How do I learn from people who've already done it? That's, the wisdom. And the third thing that I would say is I've learned how to, what would I say? And again, this is free side chats, fireside chats. For anybody who knows me, you guys come to learn me, I don't script anything. So I'm really telling it out of my heart. But the other thing that I would say is I've learned that it's a good one. Hmm. We'll come back to that. But I think what I would say is that I've learned many a times it's about who we have in our circle, right? Um, I think hmm, that's gonna bug my brain a little bit. Forgive me. Um, I think what I would say is I've learned to let my kids teach me how to love, right? Now, when I just said that, I tell you what came to my mind was the song Music Soul Child. And phenomenal song for anybody who's never heard it. But my brothers, I know you guys have heard it, right? And so if you haven't, go play it, right? But for anybody, especially if you grew up without a dad, um, but in the song, he says, I was always taught to be strong. Never let them see you care at all. Let no one get close to me, right? And there's so much in there where it's like, uh, for me, I had to learn, and I would say I've only learned it in the last 5 years of truly how to like learn, love, and be, affectionate. And I'm still working on that. And that's a tough thing because when you have a support system, when you have a partner like my wife is, if you read the book, The Five Love Languages, our love languages are totally separate, right? Her love language is definitely she likes to cuddle, things like that. For me, that's not necessarily my love language, but it's a compromise every step of the way. And I think that what I've been able to do is learn from my kids because both of my kids are very much um they're sweet. Like, if I'm just honest, like, my kids are very, very sweet. Both of my kids, they have hearts made of gold, and I don't not just at home, like, they are. CJ's this nice kid, Jada, the heart made of gold, and so I think I've allowed them to teach me what it's like to feel loved. I've allowed them to teach me what it's like to show love, unconditional love, and I've allowed them to teach me all of the ways that I can still support someone else, even when I feel like I'm not supporting myself, right? And I think as a man, that's a tough thing because every single day you're always trying to provide, but a lot of the times it's at the detriment of your own health and more importantly, your own mental health, right? And you fight through it, right? You never cry, right? You're told you can't cry because that's not what a man does. But for me, for like my son, and it's tough because my dad never told me that it was okay to cry, right? My dad never told me that, like, son, like, yeah, man, you're gonna be all right. You're gonna take some L's, right? But for CJ, and hopefully at some point I'll bring him on here and we'll talk about, all of the conversations that we have. But I'm constantly telling CJ, that it's okay to show your emotion. But at the same time, right, you got to control that emotion. Because if you allow yourself, in my opinion, to, you know, show that emotion uncontrollably, you then lose the discipline that you need to have to get out of victimhood, right? So that's something, lots of conversations that we have. And, some people maybe not agree with that part. But for me, I've just always tried to focus on building a foundation for who I want to be as a father. So CJ knows what the standard is when it comes to who we can be. And I always tell him everything that I've done, right? It's only to show you and to help you outgrow me, right? Because now your benchmark is set here, but you got an opportunity because I've already given you the wisdom, I've already given you the love, I've already given you the support, and hopefully you build your own discipline. And I think all of those things are very important for us as a man. Um, so yeah, that's the first episode that, like I said, I wanted to do here. I think next week I'm come back. We'll find a different topic. And I'm gonna start to, at least put some notes down here. But we're gonna be doing this, like I said, I'm gonna do it every Wednesday night. It will be at 8:30 Central Time. And we're gonna see how it goes. I know going forward, if there's any dads out there that want to rock with me, that want to come on here, I'm gonna get it all set up and we'll be able to see the chats and we'll host safe space. And this is all provided by Parent Porch. I would tell you, anybody who has been rocking with us for the last couple years, it's been phenomenal. I know moms have, our DMs are filled every single day, right? And it's so dope to see that parents love the support that we try to give, the entertainment that we try to give. And I know the ladies are planning on, doing some workshops for moms. We have doctors that are going to be coming onto the platform. We have um, beauty and aesthetic professionals that are going to be coming onto the platform. We have a multitude of people. Obviously, we have this platform, and we're very, very grateful that we get to empower, we get to educate, and we get to offer resources to these parents, and we don't have to charge on it. So that's been just so great. So for anybody who, if you have a voice, if you have something that you think as especially as a business, if you have something that you think would be beneficial, we would love to hear about it and see if it aligns with our mission, like I said, to support, to empower, to educate. And then also, any of the things that we are doing, if you are a business that you're looking to sponsor, we're going to be doing live events. These will be starting out in the DFW area. So if you are in Dallas, this will be, an amazing way for you to be able to get in front of parents. But we are going to be also moving around and doing chapter events, and there's a lot of things in the works that these ladies are leading. But like I said, this is my little part, and just coming on here every Wednesday night, 8:30. So if you know of any dads, please have them reach out to the platform, have them reach out to me. We want to get these dialogues, these conversations started, so we all feel like that we're heard. It's the journey of parenthood. As we all know, there's no rule book on it. And so a lot of the times you just want to feel like someone gets you. And I know that that's me a lot of the times, but I always continue to tell myself that I'm blessed and I'm highly favored. Why? Is because one, I'm still breathing. Two, I got a lot of opportunity that's right in front of me. Um, and yeah, that's where I'll leave it at, to not keep rambling. But again, I appreciate anybody who's rocked with the platform. I promise you, ladies, anyone, regardless of what the platform that you're rocking with us on, whether that's TikTok, whether that's YouTube, whether that's Facebook, Instagram, we have a lot of cool things coming. We understand that we're in a unique situation, and we want to take advantage of that by making sure that we can offer better resources to parents. Because even right now, another thing I'll say, so like CJ, my son, he is amazing athlete, but he's also a streamer and a gamer. He has a YouTube platform, and he has almost 80,000 subscribers on that YouTube platform, right? And so, how do you raise, a kid that now has these subscribers, probably Neil and all of the NIL, for anybody that's wondering what's Neil, who's Neil, name, image, likeness, all those things are coming down the platform for him, or the pipeline for him, right? And this has nothing to do with Parent Porch, but this is a whole nother segment where him and I are having these conversations almost daily. And right when he first got approved to the YouTube platform, the one thing that I told him is, I don't care if you make $1 or if you make $100, like, never change up your character, right? So that's for a whole nother conversation of how do you raise a child that's now, streaming, who's, doing great things, right? At 14 years old, making money. How do you guide that child the right way? And my child's not, there's lots of kids that are out there making money. Well, now we're talking about financial literacy, right? Those are other things that we're going to be bringing to the platform, bringing to Parent Porch, to make sure that every parent feels like that they have the resources that are necessary to raise a happy, a healthy, and a thriving family. So again, I could talk about this because when I talk with these ladies, I get very, very excited about the vision that they have, where they want to go with it. And again, it takes the village, right? So if you are a business, or if you're looking to get any sponsorships or get in front of parents or something like that, of course we'd have to see if our mission aligns with your mission. But we would love to have a conversation. So it's 9 o'clock. I want to make sure that I keep this on point from the start to the finish. But I appreciate anybody who's rocking with me, who dropped a comment. I haven't gotten it all set up yet for me to be able to see the comments or anything else. So please forgive me if I didn't say anything there. But I appreciate each and every one of you all. And remember, I always say this, and you'll hear me say this, but in the dream we trust. If you got a dream, and everybody has a dream, it's your duty, your responsibility to figure out how to turn that dream into a reality. Because without it, that dream that you have, you're no different than a robot. That dream is what gives you a soul, right? And without action, that dream, it'll only merely be a fantasy. So take action on something tonight. Send that DM, make that call, right? Say that prayer. Tell your son, your daughter, I love you, right? Give him a hug, give him a kiss, right? And just let him know that you're here, you're present. It doesn't matter what happened in the past. It only matters about what's going to happen in the future. That's the mindset that we got to have. So again, thank you all for rocking with us here at Parent Porch, and we'll see you next week.